I stumbled upon my neighbor's secret. But that secret became the catalyst for a change in our relationship. What I'm about to share is a dramatic experience that happened to me. My name is John, 30 years old. I work in the accounting department of a company. Besides general clerical work, I handle things like prepayment of expenses and transportation. I also create ledgers and gather data, but compared to the more glamorous HR or sales departments, my job might seem rather mundane. However, I don't dislike my work. I've been working there since I graduated, and I don't have to work overtime, so I don't get stressed out at work. I often have to crunch numbers, and it feels good when the numbers fit together perfectly. Considering my personality, I always felt this job was a perfect fit for me. But one day, an incident occurred. It was on a Monday when I arrived at work. The entire accounting department, a few of whom had already come in, was all abuzz. There seemed to be an error with a transaction with a client. Worse still, the mistake was being pinned on me. There was a payment error logged under my account. But I have no memory of making such a mistake. John, you made a terrible mistake. It's a matter of trust. It cannot be solved with an apology. The manager said, glaring at me. I didn't do anything of the sort. Sure enough, that client was managed by both me and another guy named Mike. Mike has been looking out for me since I was a rookie, and he's a senior colleague I trust. He claimed he hadn't made any errors either, but the login history pointed to me. Everyone seemed convinced that I was the one at fault. In the end, I was blamed for the mistake and got demoted as a result. Who unintentionally made the mistake and pinned it on me? Or was there someone who didn't like me and tried to frame me on purpose? And so, I had to leave the main office without ever learning the truth. On my last day at the main office, Mike came to see me. Mike, I really appreciate all you've done for me. As I said that and bowed my head, Mike bowed even deeper, almost to the point where his head would touch his knees. John, I'm so sorry. It was me. I was the one who messed up. I was taken aback and couldn't immediately respond to Mike's words. The money transfer error to the client that both Mike and I were responsible for. Of course, initially, I had suspected that maybe Mike was the one who messed up. But I quickly dismissed that thought. Ever since I was a newbie, Mike had always been there for me, giving advice on my concerns. Even when the boss was mad, he'd stand up for me multiple times. He is such a good-natured person who takes good care of people and cannot leave a junior who cannot do his job well. There's no way someone like him would pin a mistake on me. I had assumed that someone had used my login history to mess with me. Never would I have imagined that it was Mike who had made the mistake. No, more than the fact he made a mistake, it was hard to believe and quite shocking that he let it be pinned on me. Wait, what? It was your mistake, Mike. That day, I was in a hurry. I noticed it was under your login history, but I thought it'd be fine and made the transfer. Turned out I got the digits wrong. I was overconfident, didn't get the usual double check from anyone. Mike's voice was shaky, filled with remorse as he explained, and I was in disbelief. But if that's the case, why didn't he tell the boss it was his mistake? Perhaps sensing my inner turmoil, Mike lowered his head again. I'm really sorry. I overheard the manager talking about cutting your pay or demoting you, and I got scared of admitting it was my mistake. My kid was just born last year, and my wife can't work due to her health. I was terrified thinking, what will happen to my wife and child if my pay gets cut or I get demoted? While he spoke, I remembered the photo of Mike's wife and child displayed on his desk. I had heard that Mike's wife had health issues, and right after giving birth, she was in and out of the hospital quite frequently. Mike has always been a loving wife and child. I fully understood his feelings of being unable to speak up to the boss because of his family. And even now, after being blamed and facing a potential demotion, I couldn't bring myself to dislike Mike. Because of Mike, I found a place for myself within the company. He's saved me countless times with his kindness. I don't have a family or a partner. Even if I were to be demoted, I could still manage. Mike, I get it now. To be honest, I'm shocked. My career is gone, but even if I get demoted, I'm still single, so I'll be fine. What you did is wrong, but you did it for the sake of your family. I forgive you for what you did. Of course, I understand when it's appropriate to report something to the boss. But I just couldn't do that. Kind-hearted Mike seemed overwhelmed with guilt. I didn't want to trouble my amiable senior any further. My transfer took me to the Midwest. Being born and raised in the city, moving out of New York and working and living elsewhere was a first for me. I wasn't thrilled about my transfer here, but seeing the beautiful greenery and the ocean on my way from the city lifted my spirits a bit. I've never been particularly ambitious. All I want is to fulfill my given tasks and earn enough to live comfortably. Starting a new life without family or acquaintances is a bit daunting, but I thought I'd manage, especially with nature around to soothe me. My new place is on a first-floor apartment meant for singles. It's relatively new and close to the train station and grocery stores, so the rent is relatively high, but it's manageable. I chose this place thinking it's better to be closer to the station, even if the rent is a bit higher, rather than having to walk endlessly after work. It's also well lit at night due to the frequent passersby, which is good for security. On the day I moved in, I went around greeting the other residents. Some weren't home, so I left them a note and some sweets hanging on their doorknobs. The last place I visited was the room next door, which belonged to Madeline. I pressed the intercom, and when she answered, she looked at me and smiled. Her kind smile reminded me of a senior I had a crush on back in middle school. My heart raced for a moment, but I made sure not to show it on my face. Sorry for the sudden introduction. I'm the new neighbor, John. Nice to meet you. I'm Madeline. Thank you for taking the time. Nice to meet you too. I had always been worried about whether my new neighbor would be unfriendly or hard to approach, but those fears turned out to be unfounded. The lady next door seemed very kind. It's rare these days for someone to come over and introduce themselves after moving in. She said that, but I didn't understand why. I thought it was normal to greet your neighbors after moving. Is it rare? It seems like nowadays fewer people introduce themselves when they move. Some women, especially if they live alone, don't want others to know for safety reasons. It was the first time I'd heard of that, but thinking about it, it made sense. That's a shame. It's a bit of a lonely world then, isn't it? With safety in mind, I guess it can't be helped. When I said that, Madeline nodded in agreement. I feel the same way. I'd rather have someone I recognize living next door. It's reassuring. So I was relieved when you came by today. I was worried about who might move in, wondering if it'd be someone scary. I had intended to leave right after introducing myself, but I ended up chatting with her in the apartment hallway. Madeline mentioned she was originally from Oregon. When she learned I came from New York, she said, compared to New York, there might be fewer entertainment options here, but we have beautiful nature and plenty of sights. I hope you'll come to like it. She works as a preschool teacher and is 2 years younger than me. But she's so mature that I never felt she was younger. From that day on, every time I saw Madeline, we would chat. My personal life was enriched with Madeline in it, and my job was going well. I adjusted to my new workplace pretty quickly. The people at work were great, and the environment felt open and welcoming. They even threw me a welcome party. After a few drinks, we all got along swimmingly. Despite being transferred, I was living fulfilling days. About 2 months after moving, I ran into Madeline in front of our apartment building on my way home from work. Had it been just that, it wouldn't have been surprising. But seeing Madeline, I couldn't help but exclaim, "Whoa!" She was wearing an apron. I knew she was a preschool teacher, but I had never seen her in her work attire. You wear an apron at work. She had on a cute apron with illustrations of bunnies and bears. She patted the pocket of her apron, which had an illustration of a rabbit on it, looking a little embarrassed. Yes, I usually take off the apron before heading home, But today, I spilled something on my coat, so I came home wearing it. I never thought anyone would see me in it, so I'm a bit embarrassed. Seeing Madeline in a way I hadn't before. And noticing her cheeks turning a soft shade of pink with embarrassment, my heart skipped a beat. The apron really suits you. I bet the kids absolutely adore you as their teacher. As I said that, she smiled and shook her head side to side. Me, I'm just a clumsy teacher who messes up all the time. But I truly love this job. The kids are so precious, and it's such a joy to watch them grow. While she often describes herself as a clumsy teacher, Madeline's smile always shines brighter when she talks about her students. She must be a good teacher, I think. From that day on, whenever I met Madeline, she'd share stories from her job. But she never complained or vented about her work. It was always tales of cute things the kids did or kind words they said. Being a childcare worker, I know, is a tough job, but hearing Madeline always staying positive and clearly loving the kids so much made her stories enjoyable to listen to. Besides, Madeline is good at finding the best in people. She's always so upbeat, and being around her makes me feel more positive. I started looking forward to our little chats whenever we'd bump into each other. Then, one day, a package arrived at my apartment. Given I often order stuff online, I receive packages like this almost weekly. Without any suspicion, I opened it. But when I saw the contents, I was at a loss for words, thinking, whoa, what is this? Inside was a women's cosplay dress and a blonde wig. Reading the attached note, I realized it was a princess cosplay costume. While it had a miniskirt, it was clearly for adults. I certainly hadn't ordered something like this. In a panic, I checked the recipient's name and covered my face with both hands. You've got to be kidding. They made a mistake. My muttered words echoed emptily in the room. Turns out, the mistakenly delivered package was for Madeline in the apartment next door. Thinking it was just my regular online order, I hadn't checked and carelessly opened it. If it were just a regular package, I would just apologize and nothing would happen, but in this case, I'm not so sure. After all, the contents were adult cosplay accessories. I don't have any prejudices about personal hobbies or tastes. But for Madeline, this might have been a private interest she didn't want others to know about. Now, not only had I mistakenly taken her package, but I had opened it. I needed to come clean and apologize as soon as possible. With my heart racing, wondering how she'd react, I pressed the intercom to Madeline's apartment. After the cheerful chime, Madeline came out. Oh, it's unusual for you to visit my apartment. What's up? She looked at me with a puzzled expression as I bowed my head in apology. I'm sorry. I mistakenly received a package meant for you, Madeline. I thought it was my regular online order, so I opened it. Oh, I see. I wonder what I had ordered. It's all right, Madeline said with a smile as she took the package from me. However, the moment she saw what was inside, her face turned beet red. Oh no, you saw the contents, didn't you? You did, right? Unable to lie, I nodded in agreement. Yes, I did see what was inside. After admitting it, I quickly added, but I believe everyone has their own tastes. So, if you're into cosplay, Madeline, I wouldn't think any less of you. Actually, I think it's quite cute and cool. Stumbling over my words, I tried to reassure her, but Madeline began to panic. No, you got it all wrong. It's not for a hobby or anything like that. Assuming Madeline was into cosplay, I let out a puzzled, huh? It turned out I had made a big misunderstanding. Madeline then explained about the cosplay item. The princess costume was meant for a preschool event. She intended to have it delivered to the preschool, but by mistake sent it to her own address, and I ended up receiving and opening it. I see. I genuinely thought it was a costume for you to enjoy in your free time. No, it's not like that. I don't have such a hobby, but I thought if I'm going to do it for the kids, I might as well go all out, so I ordered the dress and a wig. Honestly, I was surprised that preschool teachers even do cosplay, but hearing Madeline's reasoning, it seemed like a sweet thing for her to do. As I reflected in silence, perhaps sensing my thoughts, Madeline hesitated and asked, "I have a plain face, don't I? Cosplay probably doesn't suit me." I'd even laugh at myself. I was taken aback by her words. "A plain face? On the contrary, I've always thought you have a vibrant look and that cosplay would suit you." Madeline chuckled, "Thank you. I've noticed that you're really good at giving compliments. Being around you, my self-esteem feels boosted." Being with Madeline always made me feel optimistic. I used to think that way, but realizing she also enjoyed my company truly warmed my heart. After this day, the distance between me and Madeline became closer. It wasn't just running into each other and chatting anymore. We began to go out for meals and eventually started dating. 6 months into our relationship, I began calling her just sweetie. And after a year, Madeline and I decided to tie the knot. At our wedding, we even had Mike, who had helped me a lot at my previous job, attend. It seemed he had always felt bad about a mistake on his part leading to my job transfer, and on the wedding day, Mike approached and bowed his head, showing his remorse. "I'm really sorry about that time. You didn't do anything wrong." I just smiled and shook my head. My current job is pretty laid back, and it seems to be a good fit for me. Above all, thanks to that demotion, I met my wife. She's always optimistic and has this power to make people happy. It's all thanks to you, Mike. You really don't need to worry about anything." As I said that, tears welled up in Mike's eyes as he whispered, "Thank you." Any tension between Mike and me has melted away, and I've felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. It's been a few years since the wedding, and Mike and I are still close, involving our families in our bond. My wife, Madeline, is currently raising our 2 children while continuing her job as a preschool teacher. I've sometimes suggested that she could stay at home if things get too tough, but she loves her job. She feels it's more her to keep working. I've been blessed with a loving wife and 2 wonderful kids. I can genuinely say I'm truly happy now. Just the other day, on our 4th wedding anniversary, I gave her a bouquet of flowers, with a note saying thank you for everything. To my surprise, she gave me a bouquet of the very same flowers I had chosen. Even the note said thank you for everything. I was surprised, but seeing my wife laugh and say, "We're 2 peas in a pod, aren't we?" made me even happier. I hope we continue to be 2 peas in a pod, getting along well in the future.